I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar. Important content today. We're going to talk about password management, practical and necessary strategies. The series that we're a part of was envisioned and is being hosted by Foster and Motley, our friends and clients. My name is Ray Cool. I'm CEO of PBSI Technology Solutions. Today is the third of four cybersecurity education webinars for clients and friends of Foster Motley. And I know I've said this before if you've attended other sessions, but it's something I note that Foster and Motley envisioned the need for this series in order to help clients be protected, knowing that each of you store valuable information on your home devices. So the goal is to help educate and inform, improve knowledge, and provide practical information how to help each of us be more secure. So in the first two webinars, we talked about a broad overview of securing personal information. Last time we delved into email security, a really important topic. Today, possibly the most important, most difficult to manage topic in the security world is password management. And next time we'll talk about file encryption, cloud security, and public Wi-Fi, which will be follow-ups to some of the things we'll talk about today. Password management. We'll review why does security demand our attention? What are some basic guidelines and important guidelines for managing passwords? Why would we want to use a password manager? That's the overriding recommendation of this session, is use a password manager. But we'll talk about a couple of alternatives, including a system you might use, something like this, but an idea that I use to remember unique passwords, because passwords do need to be unique, and alternatives if you don't want to use a password manager for whatever reason. What are some reasonable alternatives? And then we'll go through a short demonstration of what it looks like to set up a password manager. So for those of you not familiar with PBSI, I'm the CEO of this organization that has been providing technology and security services for hundreds of clients in the tri-state for the past 30 plus years. And it's a fantastic blessing to me to know that the large majority of our staff have been with PBSI for 10 or more years. I know that knowledgeable folks help clients, and our job and our goal is to help everybody stay secure and have an IT environment that works cleanly and securely for every client. So those of you who've attended previous webinars, you've seen this slide, but it's worth repeating because this is the reason for today's content. The internet is not only a dangerous place with devices being compromised, and compromised is sitting on people's PCs without them knowing about it, but specifically exposed passwords are a real threat, and I'd hope to make that clear today. So I'm going to demonstrate something I've done before, but you're going to see in this demonstration that I'm going to do a dark web password exposure check, and you'll also see me use my password manager, and you'll see me use multi-factor authentication. So I'm going to click on this link now. This is a link to a portal where we pay a monthly fee at PBSI for access to this place on the dark web. So you'll see now I use Lastpass, and it's prompting me for my password. This is something you never want to store. So this is one of only two passwords I really need to remember. So I've keyed in my password, and then it says, okay, that password worked. It got me into Lastpass, which has now filled in my username and password to log in, but this site requires, and we've set up two-factor authentication. So now I'm going to my phone. I'm clicking on the Authenticator app that I have installed there, and I'm going to key in the password that it gives me. So there you go. I used my password manager and two-factor authentication in order to gain access. And I don't want to restore this password. So in this query, I can look for compromised credentials, and I'm going to not look at recent data breaches. I'm going to search credentials, and I'm going to do the same search in demonstration mode because I don't want to expose anybody's passwords other than our own history. So here's a history of passwords that have been exposed. And this first password is an employee who hasn't been with PBSI for several years, and it wasn't here as of a few days ago. It just showed up. So really important to know is that passwords are exposed when a site that you stored your password in gets hacked, but that hacked site might, the owner of that compromised data might sit on it for decades, years, and put it up for sale. So this password was just put up for sale on February 12th, and this person hasn't been an employee for several years. So the point here is, one, your passwords may well be compromised and you may not know it. And two, once it's out there, it's always out there. There's no way to get it back. So there's no alternative to fix it. All you can do is change your password. So the point here is passwords have been hacked, and any of you who wish to send by email a list of email addresses that you'd like us to check, we're happy to check these for free. And some of you have done that already and tell you if there's been any exposures. All that will do for you is confirm that if you've used a password in the past that's been compromised, you'll know it for sure. And so anyway, passwords have been exposed. So it's important that we keep our passwords secure. What are the basic principles? One is keep our passwords private, and two is keep them unique. This is the most difficult problem in the IT world most of us face, because as much as I say, don't reuse passwords, I'm betting a high percentage of those listening are thinking, shaking your head, you're wondering, well, okay, that's great for you to say, but hard to do. So we'll try to be helpful today with some practical ideas. So don't reuse the same password on multiple sites, because all these exposed passwords out there may include your combination of email and password that you've used in the past. If you've used a normal password in the past, change it. So then what do you do? Second item here, don't store important passwords on your web browser. So your web browser, Chrome, Safari, Mozilla Firefox, Edge, there are all kinds of different browsers. Each offer the ability to save this password, and it's really tempting to do it. If there's a site where you're not storing a credit card, or you really don't care particularly if you're compromised on that site and you're not using, very important, you're not using a common password, go ahead and store your password. It's not the safe thing to do, but I'm saying if a site's important, it's your bank, it's your Foster & Motley account, it's your credit card login, don't store your passwords on your browser. Why? Because if your PC is compromised, or any of your devices, your Mac, and a hacker gets in there, they don't tell you they're in there. But now, when you're logged onto your PC, do you have to enter your password to go to your browser? Almost all of us know. Your browser automatically comes up. So all your passwords stored there are right there available for anybody who has your PC. And so that one security mistake that exposes your PC all of a sudden exposes all of the passwords you've stored, which is why you'd rather use a password manager rather than your browser to store your passwords. So some password management principles. One, enable two-factor authentication for all web accounts that offer it. So most sites do these days. Go to options, security, or profile, and generally you can set up two-factor authentication, and it greatly increases the security of the password you've stored there, because you need your phone generally to confirm that it's you when you log in. Password security, this is long-standing. Don't store written passwords around your desk or keyboard. If you're going to store written passwords, hide them someplace where a cleaning person or whoever else can't find them. So don't use your, somebody is unmuted and I think I can fix that. So pardon me while I try and fix this. Okay, sorry. Okay, small technical glitch there. So other principles, don't use work email and personal email. Don't use your work email address for personal accounts. Think about when you leave the organization and just what problems that might cause. But separately, if you are going to use any common passwords, certainly don't mix them between work and home, because if your home email address is compromised when target.com is compromised, you don't want that to lead to a breach at your work site, and vice versa. And if you want to know if your passwords have been compromised, let us know. We're happy to do a free search for Foster & Motley clients and other PBSI clients. So the bottom line principle here, use a password manager, whether it's Lastpass or Dashlane. There are many password managers, and I'm not particularly saying one is better than the other. Just pick one and do it. We'll talk about how to do that from a practical point of view. One commonly missed benefit, and I want to thank Zach Binzer from Foster & Motley for passing on this link, which I had not seen. One benefit is losing a password might be costly. So I'm going to go to a link here. And what you're going to see is a New York Times article about a person who is about to lose hundreds of millions of dollars because they lost a password. This person has 2 more password tries left, this article says, and and his account that's now worth $220 million is irrevocably locked if he can't find 2 more guesses, one of which works. So without the more boring detail, this is just an example of one reason that isn't my reason. My reason for using a password manager is to keep your passwords secure. But and most sites do permit a password reset. So that's an unusual case, but it can be expensive in some cases to lose a password. Okay, I want to cover an idea. Before we move on and demonstrate a password manager, I want to talk about an idea to create a system for yourself to keep passwords unique. And I do this. So choose a normal password. And my idea here is call it something like normal9 or N9. That's the way I abbreviate mine. And know in your own mind that your normal9 password is this, whatever this is for you. Don't use this one. Then make notes for yourself that never expose the password, because you're never going to store that password anywhere. You're going to remember that password. And the notes will make the password knowable to you, but not to anyone else. So for the text portion, you'd store your note would say something like cap third. So that would, instead of being my normal, my text 1, 2, 3, 4, it would be capitalizing the 3rd letter, otherwise staying the same. For the number portion, if I stored it saying N9, meaning normal 9, and different numbers, it would mean my normal text with the different numbers. If I store it and I say normal 9, cap second, 6453, that would mean capitalize the 2nd letter of the text and change the numbers to this. And in this way, if you only know your my text, my favorite vacation spot, 1, 2, 3, 4, or my middle name, 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever you want, probably not your middle name, and don't use a noun from the dictionary. Use something a little more unusual than that. Once you have this idea, then you can store in places that aren't quite as secure, because if somebody sees N9 4433, they don't really know what that means, but you do. Okay, so that's an idea. And wherever you store these notes, make sure the notes are secure, just in case. So alternatives to a password manager. Again, this is before moving on and demonstrating a password manager. There are 3 ideas that can be practical. One of the benefits of a password manager in general is that once you store passwords in a password manager, the passwords are synchronized between all of your devices. So you can be using your phone, store a new password, go to your PC, it's already there. Go to your laptop, it's already there. Make a change on your iPad, and it shows up on all your other devices. So synchronized and secure. So what other products are synchronized and secure? OneNote is one of them. This is a Microsoft product that comes free with Office, and I'm going to demonstrate an example. I don't use this myself, but I've noted that it's a reasonable idea if you're not going to use a password manager. So I'm going to go now to my OneNote. I use OneNote all the time. and I'm going to go to my notebook, and I have a tab that I've called encrypted tab. So this might be named my passwords. And what I do to unencrypt it is I enter here and put in my password. So now here in this area are an example of the notes that I was just mentioning to you. So I'm saying, so these aren't my real passwords, but this is the idea. For Amazon, I use my home email, N8, and then add this. For Amex, it ends in this number. I use my home email address, and it's normal 8, except for change the numbers and add this. So this is the idea of using, storing your sites in alphabetic order, identifying what email address is associated, and putting your notes next to them. So just as an example, I made a change to this yesterday. And when I did that change, I went to my iPhone, and those same changes were there on my iPhone. So this section below, this is a copy paste from my OneNote on my iPhone. So OneNote is an application that you log in on each device and it synchronizes. I use it for my to-do list, but you could consider using an encrypted tab in OneNote. Okay, so that's one idea. So another idea is to use a Word or Excel document that's encrypted. Tomorrow we're going to talk about how you encrypt a Word or Excel document. It's really simple. You store it with a password, but we'll provide a handout, not tomorrow, but 2 days from now on Thursday. How do you encrypt one of these documents? And now I'm going to go show you how this would work again. I don't do this, but it's a reasonable idea, because if you store that Word or Excel document in the cloud, it is portable in the same way that a password manager or OneNote are portable, in that you can get to it from any of your devices. So I'm going to go now to my File Explorer, and I'm going to look on my home documents, which is in the cloud, and you can see a document there called Ray Fake Passwords for Demonstration. So I click on that, and it requires a password to open it. And I only use a simple password. This is nothing real for me, but I would use a longer password than just 4 characters if you're really doing this to store your password. So when I open that document, here's the same set of information. And again, I could go to my OneNote using my phone or my PC or my laptop, make a change to it, and then save the document. And then I could go and find that same document on the cloud when using a different device. So just a couple of ideas. One last idea is to store this information in Outlook Contact. So the idea of, or your email contact. So let's say, I'm just going to pick anybody here. These are some family friends, and I don't store anything here, but in the contact, there's a notes field. You could have the same notes stored in a contact, just I wouldn't use your spouse or a family member or something that if somebody got a hold of your device, they'd say, well, let's look at the family members and see if there are any important notes stored there. I'd use somebody obscure. And so those are some ideas. And this is the handout, by the way, where some of the ideas passed out in the presentation today are also included in this handout, including how to create a formula for yourselves and what are some alternatives. So this is, all this conversation is a concession to those of you who say, I just don't want to or can't, or I'm not going to use a password manager. But handwritten passwords in today's world, it's simply not practical. Anybody who says I write my passwords down, for the most part, when they're online, they're using the same non-unique passwords because there's just no good alternative. Okay, so how does a password manager work? And today I'm going to demonstrate Lastpass. It's what I use. I've used Dashlane. Dashlane's a great product. There are other password managers that are well reviewed, and so it really doesn't matter if you use Lastpass, but I'm going to specifically talk about this because I have some knowledge. There's a free version that is completely full-featured. So you go to lastpass.com, you download it. Some of the features that most all password managers include, even in the free version. So I remember I've said to you, don't use the free version of anything. And why? Because the free version comes with almost always a caveat that when you sign up for it, you're agreeing that they can use your data. Paid versions will be different. They'll agree not to use your data. So I wouldn't really use the free version, but it works for this purpose. First of all, it synchronizes across all your devices. Second, it encrypts passwords at a very high level. So if you encrypt a Word document with an 8-character password, that's secure, but it's not the same kind of security provided by Department of Defense level security that these password managers use. To my knowledge, there's never been an example of a password manager who's been hacked. When I say that, the news will come out tomorrow. So sorry, friends, no guarantees on this, but they certainly take great pains to remain secure. So a password manager autofills stored passwords. So when you go to Amex or you go to whatever site where you've stored a password, click a button and it will autofill your password as long as you've logged into your password manager. There's an option of a strong password generator. So if you say, forget Ray's idea of using a normal 8 or normal 9 password, have the password generator just create a unique one each time, and that works. And there's also a way to store secure notes like addresses, garage door opener codes, Wi-Fi passwords for your family members' homes or whatever. So the free version has all the features you need. The premium, which is $36 a year, $3 a month, adds a very important emergency contact, which this is worth the price of admission, because if you have a spouse and you know you could get run over by a truck tomorrow, providing this emergency contact allows you to add an email where more than one person can have access to your password list if you haven't used it for a week or a month, or specify the period of time. I give my wife the immediate access. So anyway, but it permits an option where you're not just, all your passwords aren't lost forever if you have a problem. And then the other thing this adds is the ability for multi-factor authentication, which is really important security-wise. So the free version works fine, but I would do premium. What I in fact do is I do families. So for another $1 a month total, you get 5 more premium users. And I've invited all of my kids to have an account, and some things can be shared, like if we share a Netflix account or an Amazon account, but for the most part, your passwords are completely unique. So you're not sharing all your passwords with your kids if you're inviting them to Lastpass families. Okay, enough information about this. I just want to say it's easy to do, and I'd recommend you do it. So how do you use a password manager? I'm going to go through a short demonstration where really I'm going to use PowerPoint slides, but first you create your account. And the way you do that is you install password manager, I'm going to say Lastpass, and I'd go to the vendor's site. If you did an internet search for download Lastpass, you might get a bunch of different vendors offering Lastpass. They might even say for discounted prices, but I would go to Lastpass. And the reason is the others might come with some software that you didn't really intend. Why are they offering a discount? Just go to the vendor site, and sometimes Lastpass is offering discounts that you won't see on other sites. So the first thing you do when you install is you set a master password. Comment here, you have to remember your master password. There is a way to set it, but just assume you will never be able to undo this. So this is maybe the most important step. Don't make it too long, because think you're going to log into your password manager hundreds of times, maybe once a day or more than once a day. And so if you make it too complex with upper and lowercase and a bunch of special characters, you're going to be frustrated over time. So I'm thinking 8 to 10 characters. I don't use special characters. I want to make sure that I can key in my password without it being a real hassle. So it's very important that it be very unique, and don't make it too short, but just don't make it too complex. When you set up your account, there's a choice, as with most things you log into, remember me or remember my login. The answer is yes, of course. So next time you click on Lastpass, you don't want to have to tell it your username again. But critically important, on each device, it says, do you want to remember the Lastpass password? And you must say no. Because if you don't, you just put yourself in the same position as if you store passwords on a web browser. Anybody who has access to that device has access to your password. So remember login, yes. Remember password, no. You are the owner and manager of all your passwords, not PBSI, not Foster and Motley. This is something you're going to do. So then the next thing that happens when you create your account is you can set a recovery mobile phone number, which is important for multi-factor authentication, and a secondary email address, so that if you have an issue, you can get to your account from a different email address that you control. Then there's a step you can import passwords from your browser. So let's say you, like most of us, have saved some passwords on our Chrome or our Safari, and it doesn't matter if this is on a Mac or a PC, it works the same or nearly the same on all devices. Choose yes, you want to import, choose your browser, and it will import and already set up the 10 or 30, whatever number of accounts set up on your browser, and then it will give you an option to clear your browser of these passwords. So now you've moved from the insecure to the secure world. And then for practice, you want to then add one or more sites manually, a new site that you haven't previously stored a password. And once you learn how to do that, you see, this is straightforward. And now you can add new sites all the time. Whenever you go to a website, if you're logged into Lastpass, when you go to the username and password, there'll be a little button there. I'll show you what it looks like. That says, do you want? You click on Lastpass, and then it remembers this. So just by you signing up on a new website, Lastpass has the information. And then, so once you have your account set up and you have your passwords in it, then add Lastpass to your other devices. So you go to download, but you don't create a new account. Instead, you log in with your existing account and password. Creating a new account is not a good idea, but you can go to the Android store or the Apple store, download Lastpass. It's always free to download, and then log in, and now you're synchronized immediately. You'll find anything you stored on device 1 is there on device 2, and the same thing will happen as you log in to other devices. So what would this look like? You go to Lastpass, you click on Get Lastpass, and so it installs. Then you get started by giving it your primary email address and agreeing to their terms. And if it's the free version, you want to read the terms because you may find out that you're giving them the ability to sell your data. Then you give it your new master password, which you confirm. And then a hint. So in this case, you might say normal 9, cap 3rd and 4th, and so he can give yourself a hint here when you need to find it again. Okay, so once you've set up your account and set up your master password, you give it a recovery phone number. You could give it more than one, and you send a test code, and you're familiar with how this works. You get the code on your iPhone or your Android, and you confirm, okay, now these are linked. Then there is a list of browsers displayed, and it looks on your device, and it sees if you use Safari and Chrome or whatever, and it asks you if you want to add an extension, and you do want to do this. So you want to add this to Chrome so that when you're logged into the internet with Chrome, or again, it's whether it's Edge or Internet Explorer in some of your cases, or Safari, you want to add the extension to each of those so that when you're on the web, Lastpass will work in your preferred browser. So once you choose to add that extension, it happens very quickly. Then you want to go to passwords, more options, and import. So it's under the advanced option. And when you get to import, it will give you some choices, whether you're importing from Chrome or Safari or whatever. And you click on that, and voila, your passwords are now in your new password manager. So the process is not terribly involved, and this is what the password manager looks like. This is Lastpass in the mode where in alphabetic order, these are my passwords. Of course, you're not seeing my passwords, but these are the accounts that are really in my live password. So once you have done this, all the passwords you previously stored are there, and there's this little plus button. This is how you add a new account, which you can do in 2 ways. You can either go here and add a new account, then go browse to crateandbarrel.com, put in your password, it remembers it, and so now you've added that one. Or you can go to your browser, log into crateandbarrel.com. Obviously, it's just an example. And then the Lastpass button will show up, and you can have it, you choose the button to say, yes, add this to Lastpass. And in both cases, it would become another button in alphabetic order on Lastpass. So here is what any one of these previous, AOL or Apple or whatever, if I double clicked on that, the screen that would display is this one, where here is the URL that gets logged into, and here's the name I've given it. And then here's my real username, which would generally be one of my email addresses. And here's the password, which I could click on this to show it to myself. And there's some options like copy, and I can store notes here. Like I could put a note to myself, this is normal 9, cap 4th, 1622 as a way to remember. And then one thing, if you want this to auto log in for you, which generally you do, you click auto login. So this is really the only button that you need to pay attention to once you've added the URL, username, and password, and you'd say save. So it's straightforward to add new accounts, and that's the end of demonstration of Password Manager. And we're really finished, so I'm going to summarize. So what have we talked about today? Password management principles. Don't reuse the same password. Store important passwords. Oh, don't store important passwords on your web browser. Change any password you've reused in the past. Enable two-factor authentication. And if you want to find out if you have, in fact, compromised passwords out there, let us know. We'll do a free search. And then if you want to choose one of these options, an encrypted Word or Excel document, an encrypted OneNote tab, or I also mentioned using a contact notes in a email contact. But the preeminent recommendation, use a password manager. So context, where this fits in to the series, overall security, protect yourself from the internet, secure your devices, whether Macs, PCs, laptops, email security, pay attention to the email security principles, pay attention to password management principles. Next time we'll talk about public Wi-Fi, file encryption, and how would you go about encrypting that Word or Excel document or that OneNote tab. And then if you want to know if your devices are secure, consider online security monitoring. So someone on the outside is watching your devices. PBSI does this, but again, the intent is not to sell services, just to make you aware that you don't have to wonder if your devices are secure. And then the final thing, train. Every family member, train. There are principles that can be learned, and that's pretty much what we're trying to cover in these sessions, is what are the principles to learn. So services are available. We will not contact you offering any of these services, but feel free to contact PBSI if you wish for quotes on any security services. And again, send us your email addresses that you want checked for web access if you wish.